Alienation is a conceptual aspect. What do you mean by alienation? Means you are becoming something else in your own land. You are becoming the victim of non-inclusion into economy, non-inclusion into cultural space, non-inclusion into political aspect. All these things are under alienation. Telangana was alienated in United Andhra Pradesh. What sort of alienation we had? Today, we are discussing about the expansion of new economy in Hyderabad and Telangana districts. This is the alienation. When you are discussing about the economy, people of this land were completely alienated. The superiority or the hegemony of the ruling classes, coastal Andhra ruling classes, was ruling in the United Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana people were just mere subjects who are the ruled, not the ruling class. When you are the ruled, the policies, the results and the effects of all the things happening in this period will be affecting you. That is why we are going to discuss about the expansion of new economy in Hyderabad and Telangana districts. Remember, this topic is a conceptual topic. In this topic, you have to apply your own answers, means examples, because there are numerous institutions, economic institutions, financial bodies, or some of the institutions like film industry and many studios, many names will crop up. I am not taking all those names for my convenience and for your convenience, because if I speak about the conceptual aspect, you can make the application and have your own examples. So, when I am talking about the expansion of new economy in Hyderabad and Telangana districts, this is the phase starting after 1970s. From 1970s onwards, we have a different phase in Telangana, in United Andhra Pradesh. Till 1970s, what we have seen is the influx is for employment. From 1956 to 1969, we were talking about the problems of employment, because the conditions at this point, if we just analyze briefly, in India also the economic condition is not so well, and it is just growing period only, because post 1947 to post 1960s, or you can take 70s, if you divide each decade, 50s is a decade of first 5-year plans, and first 5-year plans is the seed, and you are started growing in terms of GDPs or economy. But the second decade, that is 60s, is turbulent times. It is internationally a big problematic period, and India-wise also, Indian economy was not so in good shape. There was a crisis, agricultural crisis, economic crisis, employment crisis, food crisis. That is why we call it as simmering 60s. When I am talking about Telangana, I am not leaving you just for Telangana. I am giving you the international or national background. In this scenario, in this Indian scenario, you can't expect things to move on in 60s in United Andhra Pradesh too. So, economy is not grown much. So, at this point of time, it is the employment which is crucial, and most of the employment was grabbed by the Andhra ruling class or being appropriated by non-locals. So, post 1970s, the situation is changing. Again, we are coming out of the shock, and 70s, post 1970s, it has witnessed two important aspects, that is 1969 movement, Jai Telangana movement, and the other thing is the ruling classes are again readjusting itself to the next phase of thing. So, the third decade, 50s, 60s, and this is 70s. We are entering into 70s. So, the lessons learned from 1969 movement is very important. So, based on this, the ruling class of United Andhra Pradesh has changed its method of understanding of exploitation. They are spreading its tentacles into different aspects. For example, what are the topics we are going to deal today? You take the real estate, contracts, finance companies, film, media, entertainment industry, then comes corporate education and health, then comes the conceptual aspects, dominant culture and its implications for Telangana, self-respect, dialect, language, culture, all these aspects are changing its, the character. So, what are the beginnings for this colonization? I am using the word colonization. Colonization is not just physical aspect. It is not just territorial aspect. It is an intellectual or it's a psychological aspect too. If our minds are colonized, you will never fight back. If our minds are not colonized, you will be protesting. Before 1969 or before 1970, the exploitation was direct, though it is just in one field. Post 1970s, the exploitation is multifaceted, but it is more intelligent, more cunning, because post 1969, as already have said, United Andhra Pradesh leadership has learnt lessons from 1969 movement. They started occupying both the physical space and the cultural space, physical space and the mental space. If you have to capture the physical space, if you have to capture the land, if you have to capture the economy, you have to capture the intellectual space too, because the intellectual space legitimizes your physical occupation. Intellectual space, occupying the intellectual space will what you call blunt the consciousness of the people whom you are occupying. So blunting the consciousness is another important aspect. That is why we have seen in another chapter also, post 1970s, the media, film industry has changed its facet and more intelligent aspects are coming into it. A subtle way of exploitation, subtle way of dominance, subtle way of subverting our understanding. So, initial efforts are to bring Telugu identity, as we have discussed already, Telugu Talli, Telugu Mahasabhalu, all these things are the initial ways, and consciousness is being blunt, and the next phase is a challenging one. From 75, that is Jalagamangal Rao and all these periods, till 1983, under Congress rule, it was one stage. But with the emergence of Telugu Desam Party, from 1983 onwards, NTR emerging as the representative of the new ruling classes which are emerging from the coastal capital, came out in fore. And these people or this party or N.T. Ramarao was changing the facet of the colonization. Immediately after NTR's coming to power, we can see the growth in Hyderabad city. Till then, one important aspect, because in the other formulas also, Indira Gandhi's formulas, if you see the formulas, that is the latter two formulas, 5 and 6, in the sixth one also, we can see they are focusing on the development of the capital. Once you say the capital development, once you say the changing of the face of Hyderabad, then it is opening up the gates for the coastal capital and making or taking away the Hyderabad, which is part of Telangana, into open. When you are taking away from Telangana, what you are going to do is you capture all the spaces, the physical space. Let's talk about the physical space first. For example, real estate field and contracts. Post 1983, the growth of real estate was so high with the coastal capital in twin cities and its surroundings. You can see very, very interestingly, from here onwards, lot of people are pouring in as contractors. Even middle level contractors were pouring in into Hyderabad city. Even in towns, we could see most of the people, including the smallest contractor, a petty contractor, and workers coming from districts like Prakasham and working in districts like Medak or somewhere in the construction. As if in Telangana there are no construction workers or tapi mesris or contractors. What has happened? Now from the lowest level to the highest level of contractors. Of course, the contractors, some of the contractors from Andhra were there in the construction of Nagarjuna Sagar itself, as we know many of the names. So what we could see is highest contractor to petty contractor. Gradually, real estate is entering into it. And the colonization is very interesting. Here, the real estate space is occupied by the capital from different region. Lands purchased. How we are going to enter into real estate? It is not just coming and taking the contract and building the house and going back. It is occupying the lands. They have captured lands. Lands were purchased, occupied on a large scale. Agricultural lands were taken for pittance. Pittance means actually you are paying very less amount for the land you are purchasing from the farmers, and once you have the land in your hand, it will become an investment. It is not the tool for the production of agriculture. Now the land is becoming non-agricultural, and it is becoming real estate. Hyderabad surroundings, the entire land has become real estate from this period onwards. We can see the change. Occupation of Bhudan lands. Bhudan movement started in early 1950s, came as an answer to Telangana armed struggle by the Congresses. It was a very intelligent ploy by the Congress to scuttle the Telangana armed struggle or the demand for the land to the tiller. Bhudan movement has garnered a lot of land. Even with the Bhudan board, hundreds and thousands of acres of land was lying with them, undistributed, or hundreds of acres of land undistributed with the Bhudan lands. Now they are occupying the Bhudan lands and making all sorts of mischief. We can see the debate about Bhudan lands in 2010 too. This is happening starting from 1983. Gradually the ownership is changing. Bhudan lands are completely going into the hands of non-Telanganites. Because Bhudan lands, mostly in Nalgonda, Hyderabad, surrounding areas, Mahbubnagar, you can see the Bhudan lands. And if you are occupying these lands, you are capturing the entire vicinity of Hyderabad. That is very important. And Cheruvushikham lands, assigned lands, Lavani lands we call. Then Nawabi properties, Paigas and Nawabs, they had lands in Hyderabad. In this process, in this period, they have captured the land to a larger extent. Means in Hyderabad itself, in Banjara Hills, or in many spaces we can see which were originally the properties of the Muslims, natives of Hyderabad, and captured by Andhra real estate. Even today you can see some of the prime areas occupied by non-Telanganites as builders. Agricultural lands taken for pittance. What do you mean by taken for pittance? The people who were owners, the peasantry of Telangana, were deceived, paid the people who came in and paid very little amount for the land and then taken their lands. Because agriculture was not so profitable and you don't expect big things. In 1970s, early 1970s, what was the cost? A very less cost for the lands. So paying 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 per acre or 3,000 per acre, they have occupied the lands. And they have occupied different types of lands. For example, occupied Bhudan lands. Bhudan lands mostly in what districts? One is Rangareddy, Hyderabad, then Mahbubnagar, Medak, the surrounding areas of Hyderabad. When Bhudan lands are there, if you are occupying Bhudan lands, you are surrounding the city. You are encircling the city, remember. The entire Bhudan areas in and around Hyderabad were occupied in the name of grabbing the Bhudan lands. Actually, this is taking away, making changes in the records and occupying it illegally. That is why in 2010 also we had the cases of Bhudan. There was a big debate about the Bhudan lands. Where all the Bhudan lands have gone? Who are the real owners? After collecting the land in the name of Bhudan, it is not going to the beneficiaries, landless peasantry, but now it is in the hands of the real estate. That's what happened. So, next Cheruvushikham lands, a different sort of land I am talking, and assigned lands, Lavani lands, assigned for the weaker sections, taken. Then Nawabi properties, the nobles are Nawabs are officials of Nizam, are those people having some lands in Hyderabad. In center, in middle of Hyderabad, in heart of the city, many areas which were under Nizams, which were under Nawabs or nobles were grabbed and evacuated properties. These evacuated properties are nothing but, in 1947, many people, those who are not comfortable in India, left to Pakistan. And because of the onslaught, because of the alienation, Muslim families left for Pakistan in 1947. And those lands were under the guardianship of the government or police. And sometimes in 1948, when Indian Army entered into Hyderabad, there was a big attack. What was happening? The army which is entering, they were fighting against Rajakars And in the name they were fighting against Muslims also, as Sundarlal committee has said. They were attacking. In this process, lot of people, lot of properties became completely orphans, means there is no one to take care of the properties. Lands were lying idly. And these were under the guardianship of the government and some of the officials. And these properties, evacuated properties, were again occupied. So they are gaining ground by taking away the lands which are originally of Telanganites. So next, forged documents. Again, the modus operandi we can see. Forged documents, legalizing the occupation under record of rights. Remember all these aspects, these are the conceptual and modus operandi. So if you have to write about the right, how Telangana was alienated or how the new economy was expanding post 1970s, alienating Telangana people from all spheres of life, whether real estate, economic alienation after 1970s, this is the topic. If you get a question on this, you have to write these things. Changing the documents, forging the documents under record of rights. Then more than 1 lakh acres of Waqf lands. What is Waqf? Waqf is nothing but the Muslim endowment property. Muslim endowment property, that is Waqf lands, were completely grabbed by making the land records or the Waqf records disappear. So if you don't have record, claimant will be a problem. Claiming it as the Waqf is a problem. So in connivance with the officials, more than 1 lakh acres were grabbed. Then political class and bureaucracy both were hand in glove in this operation. Political class means the ruling class. Whether, you see, political class does not mean only the Andhra ruling class. The people who are here, starting from Valluri Basavaraju or V.B. Raju like settler, who was occupying the position in the polity since beginning, and many people who were not opposing the oppression or this exploitation are in connivance. You have to talk about it. It is not just the origins, it is whom you are serving is important. If you are serving the United Andhra Pradesh ruling class, you are part of it, though you are of a Telangana origin. So in this background, we can see the connivance of the political class plus bureaucracy, because already bureaucracy is mostly non-local, occupying the important places to cater the needs of the ruling class. We could see things are completely in hands of the government. So they have occupied these things. And civil contracts and real estate both merged together, and a new section rose, which is a capitalist class, which is completely into real estate. And as a result, city is surrounded by the occupation. Occupation, if I use this word occupation, some might object, some might feel that how can you use word like occupation, because we are all Indians. Though we are all Indians, occupying the space of other area is occupation. We may like it or not, because the locals are disadvantageous, in a position of disadvantage. Their land is alienated, they are becoming the tenants in their own land. So don't you think this is occupation? So I am using the word occupation and colonization with much caution and without any hesitation, remember. So you can use it, because if we didn't have this serious problem, why we needed Telangana separate state? We needed Telangana separate state because the problem was grave. This is the situation. So let's talk about the other things also, like financial and commercial institutions. If you see the financial and commercial, financial means especially we are talking about the chit funds. We are talking about the non-banking finance companies, we call in terms of economy, banking. In terms of banking, we call them as non-banking finance companies, chit funds. It is not banking, but it is non-banking finance companies. They mushroomed post 1970s. We can see many of the owners of the chit fund companies are becoming big in terms of economy, in terms of polity, in terms of their influence on the society. They collected huge deposits, and the deposits of the people collected again reinvested in different fields. Thus, what they are doing, the capital or the deposits or the savings is from the people of this land, collecting in the name of this NBFCs and investing and they are growing and people are like that only. So we are part of the game, entire game. We were being influenced, and they invested in many fields, taking the deposit from this land and influencing the region through their economic strength. Remember, once these non-banking finance companies or chit funds or any economic institution or commercial institution is growing in Telangana, they are not only gaining economically, but they are also making their presence and their superiority felt in other fields too. Once they are growing in other fields, again other spaces also being occupied. For example, you can take about the media. The people who were in chit funds are growing into media. People into chit funds are growing into entertainment industry. People into chit funds occupying the local cottage industries, pickles and all those things, publications. And what space is there for the Telanganites after this? When the capital is gaining more surplus, more investment and more surplus and more investment again, every field is being occupied with these non-banking financial institutions. And the other fields of commercial aspects, for example, transport, goods transport, public transport. If you see the private travels or public good transport, private goods transport, everything is having their head offices in not in Telangana areas. Their head offices or their capital is from the other region. So this is another facet. And at the same time, the areas in this city, like when we are talking about the real estate is growing construction. We have two types of things. In this period, you have AP Housing Board Corporation. AP Housing Board has constructed lot of houses, hundreds and thousands of houses in cities and hundreds of houses in districts. All the housing board colonies were occupied or were given or were the Andhras for the people or non-Telanganites for the people who were getting settled into these colonies. If you see the colonies, if you see the trend, you can see wherever the new colonies are emerging in Hyderabad or new areas, residential areas are emerging, all are dominated by non-Telangana people. The culture, the influence in that area, you can see completely different. So this is another aspect. So APHB colonies plus newly developing colonies, all occupied by real estate from non-Telangana.